Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think as South Africans we hate our news media outlets, legacy media, corporate media, whatever you want to call them, the ENCAs, the News 24s, the Newsroom Africa, all these guys, we just don't hate them enough. I'm going to show you an interview that happened on Newsroom Africa that I think everybody should watch and keep an open mind about, but especially see the narrative that the left-wing media is trying to portray. That's what this video is going to be all about, ladies and gentlemen, so stick around. Let's get into it.
Criminals must taste you.
Ma'am, can you give me protection from yourself?
Did I hear that correctly? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Newsflash. I'm your host, Joe Emilio. Thanks for tuning in. Since Donald Trump has announced that he's going to cut funding from South Africa and investigate this land expropriation bill, the media houses in South Africa have gone into overdrive, trying to smear Donald Trump, trying to call him out, trying to call him a liar, trying their best to say that, the expropriation bill is not a bad thing, yada, yada, yada. It's amazing how hard the legacy media or news media, whatever you want to call it, media here in South Africa, left-wing media, is trying so hard to discredit Trump, to call him a liar, and to defend the expropriation bill. Now, there's an interview out there that I think every South African should watch. So let's watch it together. This is an interview with Ernst van Zyl from Afriforum and this guy, Stephen Grootes, who is definitely an ANC stooge.
2018, during Trump's first term as president, the group Afriforum went to Washington. They said they were lobbying Trump's officials to work against land expropriation here. They then said they believed their lobbying had been successful. Ernst van Zyl is the head of public relations for Afriforum. Ernst, good morning to you. Do you believe this action by Trump is the result of the work of your organization?
Well, Afriforum has built up a massive list and database of friends and allies all across the world, particularly in the United States. And as soon as the Expropriation Act was signed by the president, we all informed them about the facts here in South Africa. So I do hope that we had a massive effect there. I mean, you can't really see everything that happens behind the scenes, but I do think Afriforum had a massive impact.
And you see, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Afriforum, you could say, may have been a catalyst to Trump being informed. But as Ernst say, over the years, they have developed relationships with certain people in the government of the USA. The USA has had an interest in South African politics, there's no doubt about that, and has been keeping a close eye on things that are happening here in South Africa.
Okay, so this money, $440 million in funding for PEPFAR for South Africans living with HIV, is this the consequence you wanted?
As if Afriforum wanted to cut aid to South Africa. That was their main agenda, guys. Oh, this Grootes guy, he's got them. Oh, we got you now. Oh, what a ridiculous, leap to make, right? That was not Afriforum's intention at all. Clearly, they were just trying to warn or inform U.S. government of what is going on in South Africa. How would Ernst or anyone else know what the president or administration would do or react when they know about what's happening? What a ridiculous question. Let's see how Ernst responded.
I don't think that's particularly what Trump is talking about here. He's cutting off aid to many countries. He's pretty much disabled U.S. aid in total. I think what he's talking about here is increasing punishment on South Africa, particularly regarding the Expropriation Act. And I mean, this has always been Afriforum's stance, that punish the politicians that push through these destructive policies, not the citizens of the country. That's always been Afriforum's stance. You can go check out all of our press statements on it. And I think what Trump is talking about here is future action rather than action that's already been taken.
But that's not what he said, Ernst. He says he wants to have an investigation. That's fine. He said he's cutting it immediately. He said things are happening to people in South Africa, a certain class of people. I presume he's dog whistling there, in fact, to his supporters.
No, he's not dog whistling to anyone. I firmly believe that when he talks about class, either he's talking about the elites that have unprecedented power and don't experience any of the hardships that normal South African people face, or he's talking about the class of people that own property. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying that. What that basically means is that the people who own property, the middle class South Africans, are suffering. But I argued in a recent video of mine that Every single South African is suffering, whether you're rich, poor, or middle class. It doesn't actually matter, because at the end of the day, the elites, the top 0.001% in South Africa, the politicians, are living life of luxury. They don't experience load shedding. They have millions and millions of rands in their bank account. So he's not dog whistling. He's just saying the truth.
You're playing a very dangerous game here, and isn't the consequence that we've lost $440 million for people living with HIV?
Again, he's trying to bring it back to the HIV thing. But again, that was Donald Trump cutting aid to all countries, not just South Africa, but he wants to harp on that. He wants the audience to feel bad. He's trying to get at the audience and make it sound like Donald Trump is Orange Man bad. That's what Stephen is trying to do.
Stephen, you are playing a very dishonest game here by saying that that's the direct result of what Afriforum is doing. Our direct result is getting under the president's attention, the Expropriation Act. He was going to cut off aid to dozens of countries all across the world anyway. What he's talking about here is additional measures to combat particularly expropriation without compensation. The dangerous game is not Afriforum. The dangerous game is the South African government passing laws that directly attack private property rights in this country. And also the dangerous game is the South African government having 141 race laws on the books. Just 20 minutes ago, Elon Musk made a tweet responding to President Ramaphosa, asking him in his words, why does South Africa have openly racist laws? And Elon Musk is 100% on the money. That's the dangerous game. That's what needs to stop. And I'm very glad that the world is taking notice, finally.
Okay, but you said at the very beginning, that's why I asked the question, in case you did not think that this was the result of your work, that this is the result of your work. It would surely be foreseeable that this is what Trump would do. Yes, of course he is cutting aid to other countries. There was a waiver signed by Mark Rubio in terms of HIV treatment.
That's a completely separate policy. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You're trying to conflate those two to create this moral panic.
Exactly.
Around what's happening, to say that, look how evil you are. That's not true. What's happening is the South African government is threatening private property rights, and the US president is saying he won't stand for it. There's going to be additional measures, from what I can see, in regards to what Trump is announcing here.
And Stephen, you should be so ashamed of yourself. Really, really. You're trying to twist so hard. And this is what the mainstream media, this is what the left-wing media does, or tries to do so well. And sometimes they're successful. But we got to start seeing past the BS. We got to start seeing the narrative that they're trying to push down our throats. It's trying so hard to get Ernst in a corner, and Ernst is doing a very good job of staying out of that corner, not being boxed in.
Okay, there are various things going on here, right? One of them is that you have been to Washington, your organization. You're very proud of your influence in Washington, from what I can see. The second thing is that you have a US president now who talks about a class of people who are being treated very badly.
Here we go.
Who do you believe he's talking about?
He's talking about the people in South Africa that are constantly attacked by the politicians for the color of their skin, the minorities that are constantly scapegoated for all the failures of the ANC. He's talking about the minorities that are targeted by the race laws on the books in this country. He's talking about those minorities targeted, for example, by policies or that you saw, for example, in Dis-Chem, where that internal memo leaked a few years ago, where the promotion and hiring of white people was completely barred by under threat from government fines. To try and ignore these realities is to push your head into the sand like an ostrich. They are there. There are people, especially minorities, being targeted in this country by legislation, and the government is open about it in their rhetoric.
And I would go as far as to add that, again, not just the minorities. I think a majority of South Africans, the poor especially, and the poor are a majority in South Africa. They are the ones that are suffering. And it's all because of ANC policies. Make no mistake about that.
You seem to be a little nervous about using the phrase white people. Why don't you just say it, Ernst? It's white.
Oh, here we go. It's not white people, it's minorities. Colored people are a minority in South Africa. Indians are a minority in South Africa. White people are a minority in South Africa. But so are other races that are a minority in South Africa. It's well known that black people are a majority in South Africa. He's not afraid of using white people. He's just being more politically correct. But of course, left wing couldn't wait. We're like 4 minutes in. Couldn't wait to use the race card. There it is.
White people he's talking about, in your view, right?
because it's not just white people, it's many other minority groups in this country as well, in particular white people. That's why it would be dishonest to say just white people. There's nuance here, Stephen. I mean, that's the whole point, that's why Afriforum says we are bringing the facts to the table. We're not a political party. If there's nuance, we bring the nuance to the table. I mean, do you have a problem with that?
Not at all. I completely understand nuance, and of course we see it in the leadership of Afriforum from time to time. The point here is that you went to Washington, you say you're so worried about the Land Expropriation Act. I'm sure it's a bill that you've studied and many, many times. The fact is it talks about nil compensation in cases where land has been abandoned or is not being used productively.
All right, I think I know what's coming now. He's going to try and make it sound like nil is not zero. Watch.
All of the experts I've spoken to who are neutral lawyers, they do not have a political agenda in any case, have all made the same point. As a result of the president's signing of the expropriation bill, now an act into law 2 weeks ago, virtually nothing is going to change. The US, in fact, Trump's government has the right to expropriate land in the public interest, and that's what this all talks about. Is it not the case that you've gone to the US and you've hyped everybody up, and this is the consequence?
No, that's a very disingenuous way of putting it. A very sneaky argument to put it even more bluntly. The issue is not expropriation with adequate compensation, as you see all across the world. The problem is the Expropriation Act enables expropriation without compensation. Now, you can play the little language game of euphemisms of nil and no compensation, but when your employer tells you, I'm going to pay you nil this year, or I'm going to pay you nil this month, I dare you to tell him that, oh, I'm so glad that it's not no salary that I'm going to be paid. Nil is a euphemism for no compensation. It just
I gotta. Hit the nail on the head 100%. Yeah, I would like to see people react to that situation. Imagine you do a job and then the person tells you, no, well, here's nil compensation. Can't go to the bank with that.
just means that the government is going to do their little sums, and then they're going to say, well, we've factored in our little our agenda, and that means our sums say you deserve nil compensation for your property. That is expropriation of without compensation by a different name. And if your legal experts are telling you that, then they are absolutely politically biased and not playing an honest game.
All right. So Ernst, after all of this time, 30 years into democracy, right? No farms, no land has been taken without compensation. The point of this act is particularly for cases where land has been abandoned. This happens. I mean, it happens around the world where no one can trace the owner's passed on, there are no descendants. I mean, you'll be aware that this has happened. The fact is that government needs to do something about all of that. What you're doing is conflating this with other issues, making it a big story. To put it bluntly, and let's talk about what we're talking about. This government is not coming for the land of white farmers, is it? You don't believe that?
Well, this is the same government that pushed to enable expropriation without compensation through the amendment of the Constitution just a few years ago. They showed their hand.
But it didn't vote in favor of it in the end, did it?
Oh, wow. So, I mean, I'm calling it attempted murder, and you're saying, well, they didn't succeed in murdering anyone. I mean, that the intentions are clear. This is the government that said, after that failed in Parliament, ANC cadres went to the media and said, now that this opportunity has failed, we will use other avenues to get the same ends, such as the Expropriation Act. Okay. That is in the words of ANC representatives. Okay. So when it comes to what you're talking about here, should we only make noise after human rights have been violated, after the government has started expropriating without compensation farms? Or do you actually warn people that the government has granted themselves the power to do that? You act preventatively. You do not wait until human rights violations and atrocities have happened to say anything about them.
Okay. If President Trump phoned you now, and I mean things...
Ernst Van Zyl handled himself very well during this interview, exceptionally so.
Straight up.
I think the score here would be Ernst Van Zyl 1, Stephen 0, and Afriforum 1, mainstream media, corporate media, whatever you want to call them, -1. Love them or hate them, Afriforum is trying to fight for the rights of every South African, and the fact that this expropriation bill has happened is a direct violation of human rights. Personally, I agree with everything that Ernst said, and It is true what he said towards the end about the government. Let me show you. Now, this was in a BizTech article a few years ago. Ramaphosa said that the ruling party also plans to move forward on its plans to introduce land expropriation without compensation in 2022. This despite the party failing in late 2021 to secure the necessary parliamentary votes from opposition parties to amend Section 25 of the Constitution. The land reform process that we need to embark upon will promote economic development for the benefit of all. The ANC will implement its resolution on the expropriation of land without compensation despite the refusal of other parties in parliament. The ANC scrap plans to change the constitution to make it easier for the state to take land with paying for it after failing to secure sufficient backing from the opposition, and will now resort to using regular legislation to facilitate the process. Changing the constitution was just one instrument we could have used, the Justice Minister Ronald Lamola said in December. The matter is now ended. We will now use our simple majority to pass laws that will allow for expropriation without compensation. I just wanted to show you that Ernst wasn't lying, that this really happened. The ANC has been hell-bent on making expropriation without compensation happen, and you can play with words like nil and no compensation all you want until the cows come home or are expropriated. But the bottom line is this. Afriforum is fighting for our rights, our property rights, and that is a very, very good thing. Are they to blame for Trump's reaction? I think you can give Afriforum credit that they informed Trump, but Trump's reactions are completely up to him. There's no way that Afriforum could have predicted that he would have reacted the way he did. But here we are, and well done to Ernst Mansell for that interview. I think it's an important interview. I hope you guys will share this video far and wide. Leave me a comment in the comment section. What do you think about this interview? Do you agree with Ernst Mansell? Do you agree with Steven? Let me know. Let's have a bit of a chat in the comment section. While you're there, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've got more content coming your way. And with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. Your Newsflash is in.